Have you ever noticed how the most powerful people in history never seem to be around much? Kings hidden behind palace walls, billionaires who rarely speak, leaders who disappear at their peak. There's a reason for this. It's not arrogance. It's not some mysterious air of untouchability. It's strategy. What if I told you that every time you make yourself too available, too visible, you're actually losing power? That the moments you think you're securing connections, you might be quietly giving away your strength? Today we're diving into why being absent, silent, and scarce is far more powerful than always being present, loud, and easy to reach. We're talking about turning the invisible into the irresistible. From Machiavelli to modern psychology, from empresses to CEOs, this is the untold truth of how vanishing at just the right moment can build influence, create attraction, and even inspire fear. Hit subscribe and stay with me until the end, because this one might just change the way you move through the world forever. Niccolo Machiavelli said it plainly in The Prince. A man who is esteemed is not easily conspired against. But here's the catch. Esteem doesn't come from being everywhere all the time. It doesn't come from always being accessible. It comes from distance. It comes from the feeling that someone, no matter how close, is just beyond reach. It comes from being missed. Machiavelli understood that power was not about constant presence, but carefully managed absence. You see, rulers were not supposed to vanish entirely. They were meant to be seen sparingly, only at the right moments. Overexposure, in his eyes, was not strength. It was a liability. Constant visibility weakens authority. It strips away intrigue. It invites scrutiny. And most importantly, it dulls influence. You don't have to take Machiavelli's word for it, though. Centuries earlier, Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, "The sage stays behind, thus he is ahead." His philosophy wasn't about force or boldness. It was about subtlety. It was about restraint. It was about quiet influence. In his world, power wasn't loud. It didn't demand attention. It was felt more than it was seen. The less you did, the more got done. The less you showed up, the more you were remembered. It's a paradox that still rings true today. By withdrawing, you create pull. By holding back, you draw people in. Stillness isn't passive, it's strategic. And modern psychology backs this ancient wisdom. The scarcity principle, articulated by Robert Cialdini, shows that we value things more when they're rare. Human beings are wired to chase what's slipping away. We romanticize distance. We obsess over the unavailable. The person who's always around, we stop noticing them. We take them for granted. But the person who's just out of reach, we begin to notice. We begin to want them. Remember that friend who's always available to help, to hang out, to listen? Eventually, you stop appreciating their efforts. Gratitude fades into expectation. That coworker who's always online, always replying instantly. You stop respecting their time, but the person who occasionally says no, who sets limits, who isn't constantly available, you notice them. When they show up, their attention feels like a choice, not an obligation. That's where respect begins. That's where power starts to take shape. Not in presence, but in purposeful absence. Let's take a look at history. King Louis XIV of France, also known as the Sun King, mastered this better than most. His court life revolved around him, literally as everything orbited around his presence. But while he was the center of attention, he himself was often seen sparingly. His schedule was a spectacle, but his personal time, his audiences, were rare and tightly controlled. His silence made his words matter. His distance made his attention feel like a prized commodity. Nobles obsessed over glimpses, over gestures, over tiny signs of favor. They didn't just respect him, they craved his presence. Louis built an empire of influence not by showing up more often, but by showing up less. Even in the brutal logic of warfare, absence commands power. Take the Mongol general Subutai, one of Genghis Khan's greatest strategists. His armies were infamous for disappearing from the landscape entirely, only to reappear at the most unexpected moment with overwhelming force. It wasn't just his tactical brilliance that terrified his enemies. It was the uncertainty. It was the dread of not knowing where he was or when he'd strike. He didn't just win battles, he created myth. His power didn't just lie in what he did, it was in what people imagined he could do. That's the power of invisibility. Now let's contrast that with Napoleon Bonaparte, a man of immense charisma, strategic genius, and unmatched ambition. Yet his fall teaches another important lesson. After his first exile, he returned from Elba with dramatic flair, only to see his second reign fizzle fast. Why? Because he had been seen too soon. The people hadn't had time to forget his flaws, his mistakes, his defeats. He returned too early, before absence could transmute his defeat into legend. Instead of inspiring awe, he reminded people of reality. He lost not because he was weak, but because he was too familiar. Reverence requires distance. Now take a moment to think about this. When you see something over and over, when it's always in front of you, doesn't it start to lose its power? Even the most extraordinary things become mundane if they're constantly exposed. Icons lose their shine when they're always in your feed. Even gods must retreat to stay divine. Mystery isn't just an aesthetic, it's functional. It keeps reverence alive. Think of that artist who vanishes after releasing one unforgettable album, leaving fans wanting more. The lover who pulls back a little, not texting constantly, but letting longing grow. The leader who waits, pauses, and then speaks. In every case, what's withheld becomes powerful. The silence between gestures, the space between appearances, that's where tension builds. A study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology confirmed that people find others more attractive when they're slightly less available. Not distant enough to seem disinterested, but just unavailable enough to provoke curiosity, to spark desire. It's that little bit of uncertainty that creates the spark. Even animals understand this. The alpha wolf doesn't constantly bark or growl. It doesn't need to. Its power isn't in noise, it's in presence. The wolf shows up at the right moment, disrupts the pattern, and then recedes. Its silence is a signal. Its restraint amplifies its authority. And that, my friend, is how power works. Power isn't about volume, it's about impact. The less you use it, the more it grows. Now let's take a poetic example from ancient Japan. The samurai embraced a principle called yugen, a deep, subtle grace. It wasn't about showing off skill or dominating attention. It was about what was left unsaid, unseen, unflaunted. A true samurai didn't need to prove himself with every motion. His aura spoke louder than his actions. He let mystery sharpen his edge. In their culture, presence was a dangerous thing, but absence, that was sacred. Absence created myth. Fast forward to today, and this same pattern holds true. Tech giants like Elon Musk disappear for weeks, only to return with a single tweet that sends markets into a frenzy. Beyoncé vanishes off the radar, and then out of nowhere, she drops a visual masterpiece. No announcement, no prior warning, just pure impact. That quiet then storm is what makes them larger than life. They don't chase attention, they orchestrate it. That's the playbook. In your personal relationships, this dynamic applies too. Text too often and you flatten your presence. Be too available and your value starts to seem automatic. But when you give some space, create some friction, something changes, interest sharpens. Longing grows in the gap between messages. Suddenly you become something to reach for, not something that's always there. Desire feeds on absence. And here's the truth. This isn't manipulation. It's human nature. But don't get it twisted. Absence isn't abandonment. It's not about cruelty or ego. It's intentional space. A deliberate pause that lets your presence gain weight. It's saying, you don't get all of me, not for free. And that's where power begins. That boundary isn't a wall to keep people out. It's a throne to remind them what you're worth. It's not arrogance, it's gravity. So how do you take this principle and apply it to your own life? Start by reclaiming your time. Say no more often. Let some texts sit unread. Don't reply just because you can. Don't explain every move. Skip the party once in a while. Let people notice your absence. Let them feel the gap. That tension they feel, that's power forming. That silence, that's your presence being amplified. Let them ask, where is he? Or why hasn't she responded? Because in that moment, you flip the dynamic. You've become the one who's chased, not the one who's chasing. You've become rare, and rarity in any age is priceless. Don't just show up, arrive. And when you do, make it count. Speak less, move with calm. Let your presence feel like an event. This isn't about playing games. It's about self-worth. You don't owe anyone constant access. Value your presence like it's a rare currency. If you're always available, your presence becomes cheap. But if you're rare, strategically rare, your presence becomes a prize. And here's the core truth. Power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg to be seen. Power waits. Power lets the world come to it. So stop being so easy to reach. Step back. Create space. Make your presence felt by making it rare. And when you do appear, own it. Own the moment. People don't chase what's always in front of them. They chase what they might lose. This right here is the secret to commanding presence, building respect, and harnessing influence. You don't need to be everywhere to be everywhere. Start applying this. Start stepping back, but with purpose. Let your absence speak for you, and watch as the world begins to follow your lead. Thank you for watching. If you got value from this, hit subscribe, drop a like, and share it with someone who needs to learn the power of disappearance. Remember, sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to simply disappear.